I was surprised by this movie in many ways.
I was regretting my decision.
I think this would be something I'd show to my kids.
Oh, that's good to hear.
I think it's about a father's love for his child.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
And a complete stranger's love for that man's
They
child.
wore really ugly outfits. Puke yellow, prom night, pale blue, you know.
I don't even know where to start with this
Definitely
film.
not a movie I would consider watching unless you tell me to. Hello, I'm Derek.
And I'm Peter.
And this is our first episode of Mog-osophy Live.
We're two of us podcasting gurus and insightful late night talkers talk about things like philosophy, the meaning of life, science fiction, action, what it is to be a man, what it is to be a woman, because we know, and all other things in between. Except for the knowing what it is to be a man and knowing what it is to be a woman, because we have no idea. But apart from that, we're all good. And apologies for my voice; it is quite charming, I realise.
Say hi, Ada. Oof. Yep. What it is to be a dog, we know about that, though. Ada can tell us.
Well, that's the closest that I do know to being any type of living human.
I'm excited because you know what the Mog is for me is like we've always broken down great films, and there's always been a trying to understand.
I wouldn't say great films.
Well, after the toy, we learned pretty quick. But understanding but analyzing them at great detail is what we're good at. It's not so much the comedy aspect. But
come on, I'm a comedy genius. What are you talking about?
But it develops a language of appreciation, and I think that's what's lacking today. Is that there's a lot of hate. It's easier to hate something and to spew, criticism than it is to find why something's great.
Stop being woke, Derek. Stop being woke.
And last time you joked that your analytical mind is being wasted on Star Wars.
I did it. Well, I wasn't quite serious about that.
But it made me think that let's start talking about real things, because we can. The Acolyte's over. Do you have any inputs? It's been a couple of weeks now.
With regards to the Acolyte?
Just what you've seen, and there's been stuff that's said.
So not much in my opinion has changed really. I think it's just a question of, I think there's a lot of backlash now to Star Wars. I mean, I think that there was a lot anyway. I mean, whatever you do on YouTube, or any of those social media, the more you look into it, the more you get one side. It eventually sort of filters through what you look at and then decides that you've picked a side, and then it'll continue to send you that side of things. That being said, when I looked up stuff on the Acolyte, I kept getting these sort of like media people who are like these people who were like talking about Acolyte and all of that type of stuff, but they were like right wing.
Really?
Well, you get a tinge of that. You kind of get the sense that they either were right wing or they were ready to jump down the hate train of anything. And after a while, you're like, I mean, there's one particular channel which I basically said, stop sending me recommendations. And then like a month or two later, it started sending me recommendations for this person again.
Have to block that stuff, hey, now. It's crazy. My brother, in the end, he admitted that the writing wasn't good. He was right about the Force Virgins, but the rest...
Well, what tipped him over the edge? Did he tell you?
The last couple episodes, he said the exact same thing we were saying, that you couldn't read people's intentions, and it changed minute to minute. It's like they say one thing, and then the next minute they do the opposite of what they said.
The complete opposite, yeah.
You can't track it.
Like, quite literally, it's an exercise.
And he said bad writing.
It's
so,
really. It's just, yeah, it was absurd.
So I'm keen
Actually,
to.
I've, yeah, sorry, you go.
Oh no, you go.
Well, I was just gonna say, uh, there's another film that's was very popular when it came out. Everyone loved it, but it also had that everyone kept changing sides. Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl.
Oh, the second installment, right?
No,
Third.
Curse of the Black Pearl was the first one,
Oh, okay.
I think. Because in that one, people were changing allegiances all the time.
Well, that was part of it, wasn't it? That
And
was
then
part of
more
the.
later on, it was. Yeah, no, it was part of it. I guess it was it sort of deliberately made that the trope. I think in the first one it did it well, but the other one's not quite as much.
I
It
liked.
just popped into my head.
It was very camp, that film.
Oh god, yeah.
um,
Parlay.
I have one correction I should have said. Is the red letter media? It wasn't the Force Awakens that they did the doco on. It was the Phantom Menace. Did you see that?
Ah, um, uh, I may have. I know that there was one where I've seen a few of the Phantom Menace ones. Yeah, I hadn't heard of the. Well, it did pop on my head. Maybe it was Phantom Menace, but I think I would have liked to have seen a Force Awakens one though.
And it's funny
Um,
because the guy in recent times back then he said, "Oh, why didn't we, get someone like because J.J. Abrams had just released the Star Trek reboot, and he says, why don't we get a director like J.J. Abrams?" And it's got his voice saying that, back then, and now it's like it's all your fault. And he
yeah,
goes, "I'm
it's
sorry."
like, yeah. What's it talk about? Like, I think we've got a culture where we of Schadenfreude. What is it, Schadenfreude? Where we get glee in the suffering and the other people's suffering, and like, I mean, in Ryan Johnson's case, I'm happy for that. But apart from certain directors have kind of earned it because they like, but most people haven't, and it's too everyone's too quick to jump on any bandwagon for sort of like the cancel culture and all that sort of stuff. But
And the thing that we did talk about was at length, and this was a real thing. So, you came up with a solution to cancel culture. You keep doing what you're doing, as Trump's
yeah.
doing, and people's attention spans are so limited now. And that was a really good point that you brought up.
Well, you don't. Well, like, and since then I saw a few people saying things uh, like you're feeding the beast. When people are saying you've done something wrong, you feed the beast by responding back to it because people they're not arguing against you in a logical way. They've just made it illogical. It doesn't matter whether you're right or whether you're wrong. They've just picked a position and it suits them to do so. And it doesn't have to be logical. It doesn't have to be based in anything factual or true or sense making or anything. They've just picked it, and for you to engage back with that can feed it.
So that was Asmund Gould that said that.
Um,
Asmund Gould? Is that what you told me?
I think he said stuff like that too. Yeah,
Oh.
there's been a few. There's been a few things that I saw just today, actually, about one of the top streamers or something. I don't know why I even watch this stuff. I think
Well, that's what came up for me is the this Doctor Disrespect guy. Is that what you're talking about? Controversy around that?
no, but that's just another example.
That's a
I have
good
no
example.
idea. Like, I'm just stepping back from all. Like, I try not to go into it too much because it just in the last week or 2 weeks, it's just been an endless. Like, there's Mr. Beast, Doctor Disrespect. There's other thing like, and I'm not saying that anything that they do is right or that what they're doing is wrong. I haven't been following it. I think some of it's like really gross from what I've heard, like uh, nasty stuff in terms of what they did. But it just seems like we're getting so much glee out of these people being about what they do. You know, whether it's a good thing or whether it's a bad thing, whether they should be not given attention to or they should be. Um, we seem to be reveling in their limelight and the failure of them in the limelight.
Well, it's this sort of 24-hour news culture that we're in now. There's just not enough content to fill 24 hours, so we're amplifying the small things into huge things, and we'll continue to do so. And every time there's a new thing, it becomes a huge thing. And so
it's our need for gossip, isn't it?
yeah. But I did like your solution that you keep doing what you're doing and don't be dictated by so much what's going on in social media, because that is the root of the problem.
Yeah,
But
you just keep doing what you're doing until they send you to court, and if you've got enough money, then just keep doing what you're doing, and then they send you to jail, and then maybe give it a couple of years, and then come out of jail, and then just keep doing what you're doing.
that's the thing. You can probably do that. Look at OJ Simpson.
Well, but he was innocent. What are you talking about?
So I'm keen to on the weekend.
Didn't you write a book called "I Did It"?
I went on the weekend to the Apple Store and I had to go at the new. I'll switch to this new screen that I made.
Oh, the Vision.
Apple Vision. And I tell you what, these guys, they're investing in it. So you can't just pick it up and have a go like you would any other new tech. You have to book an appointment and they sit you down with a person and they guide you through the whole process, the whole experience. And it's measured for you so it all fits correctly, and the whole experience is very much tailored to one of education and sort of this experience of enjoyment, like of witnessing the era of a new technology being dawned. And it's not a new technology to me. That's the thing. Like this stuff, it reminds me of Lawnmower Man, that VR, those clunky things that they were doing way back. And it never really took off, right? But there are some things that are
like 3D movies.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, they're still around.
Yep.
But what would you say? Would you still see one?
No, well, what I mean is that it's one of those things which requires such an investment to get into. That's the reason they never become completely mainstream. Like, there's an investment in creating the content for it, but which is the investment of the production companies or what have you. But then there's the investment of the actual people in terms of purchasing it, and then there's the investment of what is required in their time to use it and how it changes their lifestyle. We'll be drawn to things that are easy and make us and allow us to do less. Which is why the Apple phone kicked off, was because it was designed in such a way as to be completely accessible to non-computer users. That's why you have people who are growing up now and they don't know how to use computers, but they know how to use their phones.
And the phone is just as powerful, if not more so now.
Yep.
But the thing with this is the way that they've done it is that they've sit you down with that person that educates you, and it's all gesture based. There's no controls or anything like other systems, and it's actually got a very intelligent way of tracking your eyes. So your eye becomes the cursor now, and then this is your click. That's your only thing, and this is your scroll. And
yeah, I've seen them.
Have you had a go yourself?
No, I haven't used it, but I've seen someone doing the pinching.
Pinch move. And I can see all the hype now, because the difference with this tech is that it's 8K, and it's like you're actually in this world. So there's some moments where you can switch off the real world with a dial, and you can switch on wherever you want to be, like on the moon or by the side of a lake in the night, and they've got crickets, and like it feels like you're actually there. It's like really quite extraordinary. I've used Quest and other VR systems, nothing like this though, where you can just switch off the world. And also the eye tracking is just spot on. Like, it's so fast how it responds to
What's
what
it
you're
like
looking
on your
at.
head?
It's heavy though. It's hot. Like, if you're not used to it, half an hour you're sweating.
So
And then the woman commented, you'll probably get used to it. It's just like anything.
Sir, we've managed to make it. We've managed to make it where your entire lifestyle has been changed. Everything you do and act on is so much easier now. It's like the most perfect device you've ever invented. How do we get over the weight and heat problem?
Oh, it's not heavy, but like for me, I felt
My
like
head is on fire right now, and I can't see a goddamn thing.
it was very comfortable, but just a little bit of sweat.
Sweating in my eyeballs.
But
You're gonna have a whole bunch. You'll have a whole generation of pink eye.
so there's an experience where you get to touch a dinosaur, and the 3D tech actually itself is. So it's got an M2 chip. It's running a pretty good computer in this thing. And it feels like you can actually touch this 3D dinosaur. They say you can pet it. It's a freaking Carnotaurus. It's going to chomp off your head when you're petting this thing. And the last...
Does it actually feel anything?
It reacts to you. It knows that your hand's there. Your hand it's far enough away that you can't touch it, sort of thing.
And you put your hand in and then you rip out a thing and it starts screaming. Sorry, my brain goes to those things.
And the last thing is it's more like a video that they've pre-recorded, and it's a woman walking on a tightrope between these two mountains, and you get such vertigo because it feels like you're there, and then she falls and it cuts, and it's like, holy crap, what did I just witness? And your heart rate jumps.
This is the death of Mandy Pierce.
Who's Mandy Pierce?
It just sounded like a really good name.
All right, she's in the Rocky Balboa thing, right?
No, I have no. I just made a name up.
Cliffhanger,
no,
but
you're gonna have to hop in a bit.
And then they've got all the stars, like Alicia Keys, she's playing, and then suddenly she's singing to you, like they've got a VR recorder camera, and like she's right up against the camera, so she feels like she's singing to you, and the sound itself sort of really transports you, and they're really pushing it hard, so you get this sort of dopamine hit from all of these, you're swimming with the sharks, and then you're washing a rhinoceros, and it's like what they're really trying to push what the tech can do. So many
images are popping in my head of things that, like, you're washing a rhinoceros. It's like, no, we want you to wash its anus. It's like, go turn it around. It's like, we like to call this one every part of the elephant.
But also then they have this slam dunk, like from the perspective of underneath the where the basket is in basketball. And so they're appealing to all the sports fans, and the crowd goes wild, and all of this stuff. It's done very slick, the way that Apple's done it. And I've never seen so much energy put into something that it was all free. You book it for half an hour and you're guided through. They're paying people to guide you through this new tech. And what it reminded me was, like you say, the launch of the iPhone, because there was so much hype around that. It's actually, they're trying to really push this as the next tech, and I can see it being so. If the price comes
like
down.
What they did with Tesla, the Tesla cars.
And look at it now. Tesla's such a luxury brand now. And like the tech isn't really.
It's just a shame that it's so hot on your head.
Well, no, that was just me. Like, I don't know. I'm pretty sensitive to that stuff.
I'm kidding. But it's a factor. It's like
you've had experience. You have a VR set at home, a PC based one.
Yeah.
How does that feel for you?
It's good.
Does it get hot for you after a while? Do you get fatigued?
It depends, but not like I don't normally stop because of fatigue. It's normally because it's like, I'm just gonna stop now. Like,
How long would you last?
I couldn't say
Hour?
because,
More?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, an hour, 40 minutes. But that's the problem. You know, that's the problem with all of this tech is as long as you sort of like they need to do the and they probably know about like the human psychological like the psychological impact of using these device. Well, no, they may not because there's often this divide between what we create and how it impacts on people's lives, and they either if it's going to give them advantage, they might do research into it. But if it's not going to give them advantage, then they probably don't. Like, what won't give you an advantage is what's the long term effects of using a phone or using social media. I'm sure it'll be extremely positive. It's not like it hasn't impacted us in any
What
way,
would
shape,
you?
or form.
What were you going to say about the VR tech though, specifically?
Well, what I mean is by that is that how many people use these devices on an ongoing basis? Like they're designed to be, I'm walking around the house. Or, no, I'm walking around the street with this amazing tech on my head, and people can see my eyeballs staring at them. And I'm looking and I'm saying, "Take me to work," and then you go into the office, you sit down at your desk. Oh, you know, like when you have your phone, you just put it in your pocket, and then you pull it out again. When you have, like, it's the sort of like day-to-day practicalities of what's easy and what's not. Like, I mean, if it's something like, you know, like even with headphones, we don't wear headphones every day. We wear it when it's suitable to do so. So we might wear it at work. We can put it on. We can pack the headphones away. So unless it fits into the things that allow for our day-to-day activities, it's sort of what adds to our life on a day-to-day basis versus what's something that's a gimmick that we have to go and expend additional effort to do.
Well, the way I see this one is it falls in almost a category like the iPhone is where it changes your habits, it changes your life. We never thought about our phone as something that we look at and scroll on and like spend time with before the iPhone. It was just a phone, you play Snake and like that was it. Take some photos maybe on the newer ones. But now it's transformed into this thing that we're investing in, you know. We have phone habits now and
Well,
phone,
what are
phone
those
etiquette.
habits?
You know, they say don't
Well,
sleep with your
can you?
phone.
Yeah, but do we?
Exactly.
We do.
Yeah.
But what I mean is like, what other habits that it's changed in our life? You're saying don't sleep with your phone. That's not a that's like
Well, we have
what are
a
the
we
things
have a
it's
deeper
doing?
relationship with content now. We get all of our content through our phone. You go on the subway or whatever, you have a
Yep.
subway, but everyone is scrolling. Every single person. No one's reading the paper anymore. Used to be reading the paper. Everyone is scrolling. And they're either playing games or watching social media or actually watching TV through their phone. That's how much
Yep.
it's changed everything.
Yep.
It never existed before. And I think
Yep.
we're at this
So
precipice now where, you know, Facebook, Meta, everyone's investing in VR, and there is this weird sort of future that they foresee for us.
oh,
But
they want us to buy into this future. Yes, they're spending vast amounts of money trying to persuade us to invest in this future. Yes.
and until I saw Apple really push for it by hiring an employee to guide me through their ecosystem now, Apple's pushing for it too. And Apple's one of the biggest leaders in tech, and so people are going to copy them. So what is it now that about this VR craze, or what's this future that they envision for us, and why is it so important? Like they've rebranded Facebook
So
to Meta, and now
yeah,
it's all you know. They bought Quest, and it's all Meta Quest, you know.
it's. I think it's. I think maybe I'm not 100% sure because this is all just speculation on my part. But if you've got, I don't think they want anyone else to get the win. So you've got Meta investing in it, which means that other tech companies want to invest in it as well to ensure that whoever comes out the winner, they're the first to do so. Um, like when you had phones come out, like we didn't have the iPhone first, but there was a long period of time when we'd say iPhone or every other phone because every other phone just had its digital face. There was not touch or any of that sort of stuff. There'd been plenty of examples where people had tried to do that in the past that had never picked up. And I think they're all kind of they're trying to crack the next thing of, all right, let's get rid of the phones. What's the next thing that's going to get people engaged? Well, it's nothing at all. It's where reality just changes around us, fit to their whims without any interaction with anything. And the closest we can get to that now is by putting something on your head, over your eyes, where it almost feels like it's seamless. And if everyone buys into that, then and it's a social statement to be wearing these things, which is why the what was it, the Google glasses and stuff like that haven't, none of them really are picked up because it's also a social change as well. Like with a phone, with an iPhone, it's good as a social statement, but then you put it away. You know, you're not looking any different. You're still you. It's still a normalized environment. But if you're walking in and everyone's looking at these eyes of yours that are like fake, these eyeballs looking at you through the glass, and it's just like, hey, did you see that thing the other day? It was great, wasn't it? You know, we had a. Did you see the footy? Yeah, great results, great results. And do you want another drink? I'll go get a drink. All right, see you later, guys. I'll just get a drink. I'll be right back. Okay. It's like, you know, wearing a helmet over you.
The thing that reminded me,
a lot to buy that into people.
well, it reminded me of when the iPhone launched, and then they've created such a buzz around it that it was so cool to see the freaking iPhone itself, even just see it, and it was at such a price premium. And that's kind of what they're trying to do with this. It's like $6,000 to get even to have one, and so to see one is the thing. It's like, oh, okay, fuck, he's got an Apple Vision, you know. It's kind of like that.
But we've done that with VR headsets and 3D TVs and all. We've done all of that before, and that's not the factor that changes everything. Like they might make a profit out of them, but if in terms of changing the way that people interact with technology in their environment, I don't think there's something more to it than just it being a new technology that's really a great gimmick, and it has to be something that can be normalized in the environment, and it's not a jarring change. Like, even with the iPhone, it was great. You could show it off to people, but you could put it away. It wasn't like, hey guys, I know you're all impressed by my iPhone before, but now we're talking about footy. Can you look again at my iPhone again? It's just like, no, you can put it away. You can keep talking and engaging like you can in a normal environment. You can't kind of do that with when everyone's like trying to talk to each other, and there's one guy there who looks like he's out of the last Starfighter. You know,
I mean, it looks like that now. Apple's gone all in, though. So in the next iteration, it'll be cheaper because the tech's more, you know, more established. There's competitors. It'll be down in price. It'll be more commonplace.
We've been talking about that for VR for about, what, 15 years now?
I think it's reached critical mass when Apple's involved now. And, you know, like, because they're the big player. Like, who else is really making them? Small players. And then, you know, the Quest was the most affordable one. Who else was making them?
Yeah, but it's not just who's getting them, it's who's using them, right? So, how many people have Quests? There's a lot of people out there who have Quest. But, how many people are using them on a daily basis? So, if we're talking about introducing a technology that's going to change the way, like... And I feel like that's the message you're kind of pushing out, is that this is a game changer. This changes the way that we interact with our world. Or
That's
it's
not
just
exactly
better
what I'm
technology.
saying. I'm saying that the fact that Apple is taking it seriously now means that I have more weight behind what Facebook are trying to do, and I'm trying to figure out what is it, what's their angle, sort of. It's I don't see
Where
it
is
as
it
just a
going?
yeah, I don't see it as just a rat race. Is that what you think it is? They're just trying to find the next thing.
Well, I mean, the thing about Apple and the thing that Facebook was trying to do is they're trying to create an ecosystem that you can't get out of. So, which lends itself then to what I'm talking about in terms of changing your lifestyle. So, if they create an ecosystem that people, like the meeting stuff in metaverse where you're sitting in a meeting and you're chatting to people and they're trying to sell this is the future of meetings. This is the future of something that you do in your life on a day-to-day basis. So that when people get bought into it, they can slowly introduce things that will increase their profit. So if they're the first to create this thing that people start to change their behaviors of their lifestyle into and they invest in that, then all that money that they've invested to get people to get there first and to get people invested and bought into that ecosystem, which is what they did with the iPhone, the more it is harder for people to get out, which means the more they have control, which means the more they can make whatever changes they like to meet their own ends, which is about profit and gain. So that's why like Meta invested significant amounts in the metaverse, and Apple's probably doing something
That's what I
similar.
mean.
They're
There's
just
so much into it. It seems to be more than just a way of locking down a technology. It seems like there's something they see beyond beyond the value that we can see. In terms of you can have
oh,
a virtual meeting. You can do.
right. If you have the next product that changes the way that people live their life and makes it better, then you are the one that holds the power at the start. Like if you're the person, like iPhone came in, there were years before anyone was a contender for that. So people had bought into the iPhone system. So there was a long period of time where you were locked into the iPhone ecosystem, which meant to get out of that, you had to like you'd paid via what iTunes to buy movies to do all of these different things, which meant it was like the barrier to exit was huge to invest in a different like to Google and Samsung and all of that stuff. These different ecosystems. So it costs so much for a person to get out of it. So if you're the first person to get into it, people have to buy into that ecosystem. But you have to have a product that makes people change their lifestyles to invest that much into that ecosystem. Um,
And it's not
so
there
if
yet. Clearly, like we don't know what that is because
well, if it's,
we're not
if it's
rushing to
heavy,
we're not rushing to buy it because there's in the app store when I clicked on it they didn't want to show me, but there's no apps for it yet. There's a
yeah,
few that are just sort of
they're
fig
selling you its potential.
they're trying to they're sort of floundering around for content, and they say on the next release there'll be more content next month or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think where I'm sort of where are we going with this? I think there's a clue from his thesis paper that I read. He was looking at video feedback, and I'm going to get a bit philosophical here as we do. So
Nonsense.
he's talking about Henry Bergson's philosophy of time, and I found a good snippet of it here. Okay. Two things cannot share the same space. That's something fundamental that sort of defined physical things in the world. There can't be two things where the chair's there, but no other chair can be there. But now this changes things by having a virtual space. So like I could switch off the world and everything in that world is now virtual, and it creates an overlap with the existing physical and the virtual. There's two things existing in a different dimension now, which we've never had. And I think that's the key to this, is that they're not only making space of time through video and like what the revolutions of video did, but through 3D space now. Space is now the final frontier, as they say, but not in we think, like this distant traveling, traversing, you know, galaxies and stuff. It's actually space, as in spatial. So you're gaining control over the environment through this very controlled, you know, however you set it up. Actually, they said you can be on the moon, but you have just, you know, factors where you can decide where you want to be and what you want to see, and and not only that, it's tracking your eye, so what you're interested in, it knows like what you're looking at, and it can read off that data as well.
Well, it's the Ready Player One thing. They're all trying to buy Ready Player. They're trying to create the Ready Player One environment. Now, regardless of the book or sequels or whatever, the idea behind that is that regardless of your social situation, there's a world that you can hop into where you can be anyone and anything you want. You can still do your job. You can still do this. You can still do all of the things that you enjoy in your life, but in a different environment. Now, that's ultimately where I'd imagine they want to be, because then it doesn't matter. Then, you know, there's so many other factors in your life that don't really have to matter anymore, so you can invest more of your financials in that. So, you know, if it doesn't matter how big your apartment is, if it doesn't matter how big your physical space is around you, and you can just invest in all your time in just this medium, this alternate world, then you're replacing one reality with another.
And I mean, also there's this
in a way. I actually disagree with the fact that it's two in the same space, because you're picking one over the other. You're not existing in two spaces simultaneously. You're picking one over the other.
That's if you switch it all the way off. You have a choice, like because it has cameras that view the world and present it to you as well. So
yeah, but that's the same as a phone. Like, realistically, that's the same as looking up at my phone and just pushing on a button and then going back down again. The interaction between two worlds, it's not you're overlapping two worlds. It's only when you pick one over the other that you're picking that there's two worlds and you pick one between the other. You're not creating two worlds that are overlapping. You're basically just creating a world which has a transparent film in which you can do more in that world, because then you're just talking about the diversion of attention. Like, your attention is to either the thing that's right up in front of you or the thing that's further away from you. Your attention is diverted to the items you're pushing in the film that you're watching, in which case your attention is within this world. And then when that fades away, then you're looking into the background. It's not two worlds overlapping. It's just an interface for one world, as much as a phone is. But if you're picking one over the other, where you stop interacting with one part of the world and then you invest in the other, that to me is the point of difference.
When you're choosing and what you're choosing. Yeah. So he's saying in this paper, we equate our states of mind with distinct objects in space, and that's true. But I think what can occur in these virtual spaces is that there can be multiple. We're not confined to one space anymore. We can have multiple spaces. We can have infinite spaces, actually. It's no longer the physical space that we're restricted to. So I can, in my virtual reality headset, I can have a camera linking to a different space and one equally in this side of the room, and they can both exist in my space, all overlapped, concurrent, and I can be experiencing all three spaces, in fact. This is where the technology...
I just think with that's...
I mean, this to me is the power of it. It's actually... It's more than what we think about shutting off the world. It's expanding your consciousness.
Well, I don't think it is. I think it's choosing different realities over each other, but talking about things like digital spaces and interfaces between this and looking at this reality over here and that reality over there and interacting with them differently. We do that now. They're called computer games and computers and iPhones. You know, yes, it's not a seamless changing of what you see with your eyes, but you still like, okay, I play my computer game while I'm having an interaction with someone and I'm watching this movie over here and my phone calls and I'm now talking to a person halfway across the world. I want to stream. You know, I'm watching this stream while they're having a conversation with everyone and I'm doing this. This person's on that side of the world. This person's on that side of the world. We're interacting with different realities all the time. It's just that we, when we put on the thing, it's the type of realities that we can engage with. And I think it's only becomes a real reality when you are selecting one over the rest. Like, if you changed your reality to be, all right, I live on the moon now. And the reality changes when you live on the moon and you're looking at your phone in, you're on the moon in the headset and you're looking at your phone, which doesn't exist, but it does in this world, and you're talking to your friend over and you're talking to someone in this reality via it, like, that's when your experience of the reality has changed. You're no longer in this reality, you're in a different reality interacting with that reality's world. Does that make sense? Like,
It does,
but it's still it's still one reality.
No, I see it as more blurred than that. I think it will be much more blurred, and we'll have. I mean, there's the physical, and you can't lie with the physical. But once we enter this digital, it'll be very blurry experience as in terms of what you have access to, what you're allowed to access, and then there'll be backlash against that. If there'll be open source movements to have access to everything. There'll be free versions of things and like. But these are intangible and very digital and very virtual spaces that we're talking about. And they'll be set up in a way that they are spaces, physical, tangible things that we experience with all our senses almost. We don't taste it yet, but maybe, who knows? But they'll have access to our heart rate and they'll know all of this stuff about us, and like they can change the look and the sounds for those spaces, and it'll be very blurred though. It won't be us like deciding, okay, I want to be in this, like in a game where we load up a game. There'll be layers, and this is what I'm speculating. I mean, this is where the power of it is, because to shut it down to just an experiential thing where you've got a game that you load up and then you experience, Half-Life Alyx, and you're in this world, and then I take my headset off and that's it. There's no power in that to me. You're not changing a person's life by giving them that experience. Whereas if you give them an experience where you're part of an ecosystem of multiple spaces at multiple times with, virtual people, pets, things, for instance, that's where they have sort of control over you, because you want to be in that world constantly.
Yes. No, I agree with that. But what I'm saying is that you're picking that is the, like, there's the idea of living in a simulation, let's say, right? When you jump into, let's say we're living in a simulation, and then there's the only example I can think where I think what you're saying with the blurring thing is where you're in a simulation, and while you're in a simulation, you get into another simulation, which is a simulation of simulation, and you can go down an infinite path of simulations to the point where you don't know which reality you're in anymore.
Yeah, kind of like that, but it'll be that inherently. Like, that whole experience is what you'll experience from the minute you're in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But I think that, I guess what I'm saying is,
it's like a thought experiment. Like, I'm not saying, I don't know what it exactly looks like, but
yeah. No, so the way that I'm thinking about it, right, is in terms of an ecosystem. So our current ecosystem is we live in a reality we can feel, touch. All of our senses are keyed into this reality as it sits. When you put VR, it kind of messes with that. Big like right now it does. Like if you look at you give, I've seen some pictures of like old people at nursing homes who get VR headsets, and they're like terrified that they're gonna fall over a cliff. It's like they immediately react to it like viscerally. Like we kind of look at that and say haha and all that, but it's just because people are experiencing something so vastly different from them. But we're used to the idea of VR, so it looks to us like it's a bit silly, but it's not, because it's like introducing. We've been gradually introduced to the concepts of VR and stuff, whereas for some people they've heard about it, but until it's actually engaged with them, it's like night and day. So in that term, it already does exist for some people. But when we're talking about, no longer being acclimatized to a point where it doesn't matter how long we engage with it, we're essentially in a different reality. Like to me, that's shifting from one ecosystem to another, and that's the what you could call base reality for us. So even if we're living in a simulation, this for us is base reality. You put on the headset, you're in an alternate reality. That ecosystem is, you've switched from one to the other. They're not overlapping anymore because it's,
well, the example I'll give then
experience.
for you is like social media. I don't know if you look at stories, for instance, in Instagram. Have you ever seen those?
I'm not sure.
It pops up at the top with their face, and then when you click on it, basically you see 15 seconds of their life, whatever they choose to show you. And there's 15-second snippets of all of your favorite people, because it knows that, depending on how many times you click on them.
Oh, right.
And then you see their life in this way. And then you feel connected to that person virtually.
Yeah.
Like that connection doesn't exist, but you've seen 15 seconds of their life. And you know that when you see that little icon pop up, you know that they've got something else to show you from their life. And you've created this connection, which doesn't exist. It's so blurry in the fact that you have no relationship, but it exists. It's a real thing that exists in your mind. Your brain's changed permanently because of this technology. And the same thing will happen with VR once you start introducing these very physical, visceral spaces. You know, in terms
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It will absolutely. Sorry.
Like we put the phone away, but our brain chemistry's changed, and we know, you know, that when we click on this thing will happen, and dopamine.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. So I was thinking more in terms of the philosophical discussion of multiple overlapping spaces. That was the main thing that I disagreed with, was the idea of these, where up until this point we've never been able to, it's been impossible for us to have multiple overlapping spaces until now with VR. And I don't, maybe it's just a philosophical idea that I'm just not fully acquainted with because I haven't read into it, but to me it's still it's just it's still just shifting a reality, your perception of reality from one to another. So I guess maybe that's what they're saying, in which case I agree with them. Rather than, because the difference is where it almost feels, I think maybe the thing is where it feels like you can pick and choose a reality, and any reality you pick is a real one. It's like it is real to you, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like our base reality is this. We step into this world, and it's as real to us in there as it would be in our base reality.
It's funny because we have more agency, but in this model we have less control because we are dictated by the players, you know, Apple, Facebook.
Well, yeah. Our God is not whether you believe in God or not, if you look at God as math, our God is no longer impartial.
I was going to ask you on that note, like they're saying design and implement alternative information structures, because I know you're into data. which transcend and reconfigure the existing ones. So to me, that's really interesting. If there's like
Say that again.
intro, we so it's our duty, they say, as he's an artist, and this thesis is from the artist's viewpoint, but to design and implement alternative information structures which transcend and reconfigure existing ones.
So multiple data languages.
This guy was in 1970. It's really funny because they introduced all this stuff at the age of video technology coming in.
Yeah.
But we're in an age where
It's relevant now. It's just we would call it something slightly different. Like,
so what did
it
you
sounds to
say
me
it
like
was?
he's talking about it's our responsibility to ensure that there are open source data languages so that people who don't have to be dictated to by companies who can use their structures to decide what you can and can't do. So open source systems and having ensuring that there's freedom in those open source systems.
Yeah. Information structures, though.
Mm.
Is there a way of structuring information that can be transcendental?
What do you mean by transcendental?
Transcend and reconfigure existing ones. So it goes beyond, I would say, just to go beyond to have a higher purpose, I guess. I don't know.
Information structures to give us a...
See, back then he was talking about broadcast.
I can't read the
I'll
document.
read it to you.
Right.
He said broadcast television was dividing time into predictable patterns, such as entertainment. You know, you got your hour of entertainment, your hour of news, and then your hour of sitcom with ad breaks in between. So time was divided. And he's talking about information in terms of that. But now it's a really vastly different conversation. Information means so many more things now. And how we structure that information. I mean, it's all been relational databases, but now there's new things like, graph, node-based databases where things have weight in relation to each other. It's no longer, this is in relation to this by a determined thing. It's like this is weighted 0.6 in terms of that, or 0.7, depending on how many times you click on it.
Yeah.
And that's why people come up on your feed in certain, regularity, because they've got higher weight towards those. So I think there must be some sort of transparency in that, in defining a new structure.
I mean, that's what we call algorithm. Well, some of it is what we call, the algorithm.
And there's zero transparency, right, behind it.
Yeah. But the thing is it's probably a combination of two things. One is that they don't want to tell you how they calculate it based on what they can control, and they don't want to tell you what they don't understand of what it's doing, because a lot of the time these things kind of... I think I could be wrong here, but I think it might be that they don't always fully understand how their model works to a degree, but also it might be that they have some influence over the weightings of certain factors as well. Like, they might have a keyword database that they shift certain things about, or they highlight certain factors, or they blackball other things. So, like, the self, everyone has a different word for it now: self annulment, self removal, because no one can say that word anymore because the algorithm says that if you say this word, you'll be in trouble. So people have to come up with it. It's a very 1984, where people have to come up with where they come up with all these different terminologies for things, so that the concept of an idea the very idea of something becomes muddy.
Well, that's why I like
So
these discussions because we're openly talking about this stuff. That
we are, and the crime is that we have to change our language based on what they've dictated as what it's safe to talk about. And that's the most dangerous thing about censorship is that our very way of thinking is being dictated to. People are trying to find ways of working around it, but the reality is that we are being told what we can and can't say.
and there's a nice quote in here that says society can only be understood through a study of the messages and the communication facilities which belong to it. And that's really true to me. And that's what we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
It's the
Well,
very
we've been
nature of this.
dealing with it for like we've been dealing with it before there was
Well,
computers,
these
before
guys
there
were
was
talking
television.
video, basically.
Well,
Yeah.
video is the example. Before then, it would have been newspapers
Yeah.
and other types of media where, you know, you've got people in positions of authority who have the ability to dictate what the message is.
And the important thing here, I think, that is that printed, spoken, and video, and now this new thing, I don't know what you would classify it as, um, sort of augmented 3D, I would say, probably. Is it?
Yeah, it is virtual reality.
But it's an extension of ourselves. That is the key thing. That's where I'm saying when you take the phone away, it's not gone. When you take the thing off, that's not gone either. It's actually now imprinted, and everything that happened occurred and is an extension of yourself now. And the
Well, yeah,
messages
yeah,
exist in this world now. The messages are still there, right?
yeah.
In whatever
Because
form they're transmitted.
well, that's because we have a memory.
But also virtual space now where it exists, and it can exist in multiple virtual spaces, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure if I fully
Uh,
follow.
like you have an interaction with a virtual person or a pet or a thing in a
Mm.
virtual space. Um, you take the headset off. That
Oh,
that
it
still
still
exists.
persists.
It
It
persists.
persists. It persists outside of itself. So our interactions with it don't necessarily like it doesn't. It's not like we're hitting a pause button on the television.
No, that's the power of that.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, that certainly is that. Yeah, that's the danger of. That's the addictive nature of it. Is that you can't to a lot of things. Like I mean, we get that with games like Ark and all of that, where you go on the server, you build your buildings and all that sort of stuff, and then you have to go offline, and then you have to get more friends so that you can get some of your friends to stay online to make sure your base doesn't get raided.
Okay, that's a really good example. I'll give the Ark example. We build a base in Ark on the island, but at the same time, there's a parallel universe where that base gets created in another space at the same time. But we have no access to it, but all the Chinese do. And they can see exactly, oh, they're building this here. And they can hack this person and know exactly where to hack them, where to come to destroy their base and raid it.
For the record, just for anyone who's watching this, uh, we've got
Oh, dudes! We know what
uh,
I yak like
it,
then.
it was a
Putting kids to bed. See you
uh,
soon.
the reason that Derek references Chinese is because we a long time ago we played Ark together, and we were on a server, and that server there were certain Chinese clans that came in
They were the
that
Alpha tribes.
that created themselves as alpha tribes, and they like figured out ways of subverting into lots of bases. The irony was that later on, suddenly all these Australian tribes started joining the server and trying to destroy the Chinese tribes as
Yeah,
well.
and they
And we were just
succeeded.
caught in the middle. And then we were just caught in the middle. We were just so that's the context behind that. We're not just talking about all Chinese people
No,
come in
no, no,
and
no.
raid your Ark server.
No, it's a computer game. But do you know what I mean? If it exists in a dimension that we can't see, it's entirely possible. Multiple dimensions and different interactions with those dimensions.
Yes, I think I'm beginning to understand now. So what you're saying is that there are these persistent realities that we engage with, and we can flip between those realities. They continue to persist. They continue to they suffer from our absence as much as they are influenced by our presence.
Yeah.
So we go in there, we interact with our pet, we feed it, we go away, we go offline, we go on a holiday, we come back, we find out that our pet has died because we didn't give it enough digi pellets, and yeah, because it persists. It was just like, why didn't I save Alpha Rex number 5? Why do I have to keep going through all these versions of Alpha Rex? Um, it's interesting. That's actually interesting too, because if we create a reality and to some extent we have this now when I think about it, and that's part of the Schadenfreude thing, if that's the right term, uh, where these things that normally would have significant meaning to us start to lose their significance. So let's say you're bringing up your puppy and you accidentally poison your digital puppy for the 15th time. You say, oh, it's all right because I can always just resave Rex number 15 to version 16. I really like version 14 because he got some different experiences, but it's okay. Like the significance of these interactions, because they start to lose their import in terms of our interactions with them, can actually would have a psychological impact on how we perceive reality, not just within virtual reality, but outside of the world as well, because it'll start to build our influence the way that we think, so that
It's funny because Ark did it right. Once it's dead, it's dead. You can't roll back. In real life, it doesn't work like that.
The pterodactyl I killed. It was
Fluffy.
called
It's
Peter.
like-
You still remember
Tweety.
the name?
No, I think it was Tweety or something like that.
Tweety. Yeah.
That's the thing. Once it's dead, it's dead, and that mimics real
I know.
life. But the minute that you can roll back, you can't start breeding these psychopaths, right?
That's right. Well, yeah, and some people don't care anyway. But for the context of people watching as well, is that this is both funny and sad. I feel bad even to this day because Derek had started this base in Ark, and I didn't invest as much time. So when I went in there, I hadn't had a lot of experience, and he said, "Oh, hey, I've built this. I've spent hours training this pterodon," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And he let me ride the pterodon, and I didn't realize just how easy it is to kill.
I think you flew over a base and they had
They
plants.
flew over a base and they basically, I just died instantly.
You turn green or whatever, and you can't see, and then you lose stamina. And
Yeah,
so
I
on.
had no idea what was going on, and I was just going just to take it for a spin, and I was just like, and to this day I can remember Derek's voice was one of like this frustrated, upset.
Nah, it was all good, man.
It is now, but at the time I felt awful.
I was
It's like,
okay with it. It happens, man. But
it happened.
yeah.
But I mean,
Arc
this
happens.
is but that's the investment of time. Like you invested a lot of time in something, which adds investment of time. Like time is the currency of life, really, in terms of, it really helps to determine what is significant to us. If you invest a lot of time in something, and as a result of that, something basically dismisses all of that time, then if you go from job to job to job and you lose your job, it's not as big as impact because you've trained yourself over time to get another job. If you've had one job and you lose that job, you might be just as qualified as the next person to get the job, but you've been at this job for so long that it's so much more significant to you because you don't have the experience of that to give you a different perspective of how significant something can be, because what we consider to be significant is unique to us, and that's how much time we invest in something. So I didn't invest like an evening training any of the animals that we had. So it like the and from that point forward, I was very careful
It's a
not to.
brutal
Not to
game. But
it
I
was brutal.
also on this line, I like this quote here. So more information concerning the human condition that the artist is able to give us, the more energy we have to modify ourselves and grow in accord with the accelerating accelerations of the living present. Anyway, it's another way of saying that we modify ourselves. So this is the key to me. Like with these new technologies that come in, we are changing, and depending on
Yeah,
the people whose intentions are creating the experiences that we're having,
yeah,
they have to be very concerned with the human condition. And we're
and they're
joking
not.
about Ark, but they kind of were. They had rules in place where it was a very real environment that exists as life does, and it was imitating life. That's why
Yeah,
it was successful because
because yeah, there was an addictive quality to going in there and having to go back there and then continue to invest time because there
feed
was
it and grow it or whatever, breed it and build your base and maintain your base. It was real world things. Um, but also like you say, the people that are in control now don't have this concern about the human condition, and they're not going to
I don't, and in some cases, I truly believe that it's not just that they don't have a concern for it. I think some of these people completely recognize what it's going to do, and they just don't care because the world that they live in is one where it does that, where there is that sort of distance from how they influence that, like it's almost like the fact that I influence this world, it doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative. The fact that I influence this world is the win or lose. Like it would be better to be Hitler than it would be to be a nurse. You know, you might save several lives as a nurse, but you've killed so many more people as Hitler. You know, like you say that to them, they wouldn't like that. But
It's a nice
it's a bit
segue to
like that.
my next thing. Keep going.
No, I wouldn't be Hitler. I'd be the nurse.
It's a nice segue to this thing. Have you heard of this? Okay, W.B. Yeats, this poet. He did the Second
Mm.
Coming. Have you heard that poem?
No, I haven't heard it.
I'll just
I'm
read.
vastly ignorant.
I'll read a little bit from it. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The centre cannot hold. Have you heard that one?
I've heard that
And then
sentence.
it ends with that. And what rough beast, it's our come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. It's super dark, man. I love this guy. He was like turn of the century, but he
Wait for me to.
he. Oh, whoops. Do you want me to bring it back up?
Can you make it larger?
Second Coming.
The poem
Can you read that? Is it any bigger for you?
a bit bigger. There we go. There we go. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the centre cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming. Hardly are those words out when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight. Somewhere in sands of the desert, a shape with lion body and the head of a man. A gaze blank and pitiless as the sun is moving its slow thighs, while all about it real shadows of the indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again, but now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born.
Hey,
Oh no,
nice,
that's a
man.
question mark. Slouches towards Bethlehem to be born?
The first reading was okay because it's more of like a rhetorical question. I like that reading. Well done, man. And then you got it because he was an Irishman. But this book of vision, he got his wife to do automatic reading or automatic writing,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and for 7 years he was forcing her basically. She wanted to as well, but to do these automatic writings.
She said she wanted to. You want to do it, don't you? She hasn't got a choice anymore.
And so it came from this place, you know. We can't really. It's not science, but it came from this place, and he created this ontology, this existence of the universe, and I'll show you some of it. But he has this idea of the Napoleon and the saint. So, like, you know, like you were saying, there's the Hitler or the nurse. That was your example. But it exists, and like he's got this thing. The widening guy is what this is. It's like a spiral, and he's got all these dimensions to it. So one of them, you know, we were talking about space, but I think this is what we're tapping into with this new technology. This is where we are now. But he's got these sort of opposing spires, Gaias, he calls them, and he's drawing on Blake. Blake was a spiritual philosopher as well, and I like this quote: "There is a place at the bottom of graves where contraries are equally true." That really rings true to me. So the opposites. It's sort of like, you know, both can exist. The anti-ethical, like he says here, or the primary. So there's the dark and the light, but both exist and both are true. But it happens in cycles, and he's broken it down into this crazy. I don't even know what you would call this, but it's like, it's really hard to follow. But he's got phases of life. You know, he's got the moon cycles sort of, and like 28 phases, and you know, when you go through it, it's like you say, it's all words, and it doesn't really mean anything unless you're mad, basically. So you've got will, mass, creative mind, body of fate, and you've got these really, you know, very abstract but intuitive, definitely intuitive ways to describe your phase of existence, and you know, your phase of life, and who you are, and you know what sort of you know, where you exist in this version of his universe. And one of them, he says there's no description except complete beauty, phase 15. And then you look at phase 15, and he's got, like, you know, it's innocent, the smile of the face of but half awakened child. You know, he's a poet, but he's coming up with these really it came from somewhere. I really believe this came from somewhere, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but like it's very detailed. Yeah, feels like that. But there's this idea of the cycle, and I would come back to it. This thing.
I always find it's interesting when you go that sometimes it seems to be sometimes there are concepts which you kind of don't get until you have experience in which to put them into a schema, a bucket. So like you know how we're talking about it, we used the example the other day where you were talking about Memento, right? And in Memento, he looks at the person like they're a
Exotic insect.
Exotic insect. So like the concept of insect. If you don't know what the word exotic is, you have to come up with all of these words to describe what it is to be exotic. Once you build up all of that understanding to create the word exotic, then you add insect to that, and you completely you have this concept and you add this concept, and it completely changes the whole thing to be built upon itself. Just those two words.
Mm.
But there's so many different concepts that have gone into creating that. Those two things, just insect and exotic, adding them together creates another concept on top of that. And what I find interesting about a lot of this stuff is it sounds like absolute crap sometimes, like the person with the whole this relates to this and this is all this and all that sort of stuff. And but sometimes and I don't know in this space because this is sort of a bit beyond me. I must admit I'd have to really read it from beginning to end, I think, to even touch the surface of what it is that he's trying to say. Because sometimes when a person says something, it's purely from their own context. And unless you understand that context, you can't. It's madness. Without. Like, words without context are madness. Is madness. Right?
In this case, there is definitely a context. Like this being the existence of the universe and all phases and all beings and all things exist within this framework, and then he describes each phase. And I just gave one example of beauty, but like everything, the emotional man, the assertive man, the concrete man, and its true self is justice, his false self is his false mask, is tyranny. And so it's actually well structured. I wouldn't say it's madness. There's a reasoning to it. But the reason I bring it up is that it's come from this subconscious state. So previously I brought up this thesis, and he's talking about time and space and our expanding our consciousness. This came from a very subconscious place. But there are some overlaps with what we're talking about. And in that poem that you read out really well, we're existing in this time. It's very relevant now. In terms of, where is it? He says, the best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. That rings true to me so hard, man. But what he's talking...
The best lack conviction and the worst. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Full of passionate intensity. But we're going through these cycles is what he describes, like these phases of... and like towards the end, actually, he's got one which... I wonder if I can find it. He's saying it's like the... here. Where is it? It's quite a long book.
Did you read the whole thing?
Here. This is like times itself. Like he's mapped out the years compared to where you are on the cone, historical cones.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, and it's all through this very subconscious.
What's at the end?
Dividing.
What years at the end?
Well.
When did he predict the end of the world?
See, he goes right up to... Hang on. 1927. I think this is when it was published. So like you say, he's got his point of reference. I think... it's hard to read it.
The other numbers to dates. The line cutting the cone a little below. Body of Fate.
Well, that was like in the phases that he talked about before. I don't want to skip back because it took too long to scroll through.
Is it that one phase is stronger than the other at different points?
I think.
So like in the middle it's in balance, whereas then it moves towards.
Yeah.
And what were the two what was the cones in reversal of each other?
He calls them the... hang on, I will scroll back.
Actually, it's interesting because that kind of reference that is something that is that's another way of representing something that I sometimes talk to people about, and that is the pendulum.
Yeah,
That
it's similar to
thing's
that. It's this similar line. So he's saying all physical reality, the universe as a whole, every solar system, every atom is a double cone, is this sort of thing.
mm,
And it's got dual. It's a very dual way of looking at the world. So you've got one,
mm.
but the also the primary and the anti-ethical. So the opposite. He calls it
So
yeah
basically, he's looking for the two
antithetical. Sorry,
antithetical.
sorry. Go on about the pendulum.
And what did he say about the like? There was something about not being contrary, but something
Oh,
else.
there is a place at the bottom of the grades
Negation
where
is not a contrary.
yeah.
A negation is not a contrary.
Yep. What were you going to say
Yeah.
about the pendulum?
Oh, just that's something that you see in a lot of well, that in a lot of the way that people act, not so much in terms of like physical reality, is the idea of it where we talk about entropy is where everything gets into more complex systems, I think. But in terms of people, um, from a um decision standpoint, when they're trying to make decisions about something, a lot of the time people don't have the patience to try to understand a situation enough to go beyond an extreme. So, an example is where governments decide whether they want to decentralize or centralize. So, their services are centralized so that a few people are able to coordinate and standardize a process across a larger group. Uh, that has its own issues doing that. I won't go into it, but then they decentralize. They say, okay, so it's not working. Let's decentralize, give everyone else their own choice so that they can be more efficient at that level, which has its own set of problems because then you get a whole bunch of people going away and doing different things. Some people do better, some people do worse. Whereas when you centralize it, you can push out a standard across thing, but then you don't take into account all the exceptions. Plus, it's can be less efficient depending on how good you are at managing multiple things in the center. So, like each of them has their pros and cons, but no one recognizes that they both have pros and cons. They just say this isn't working because of X. The solution to that is to do the opposite of let's decentralize.
Oh, right. Yeah.
The problem with and then when they get to decentralize, no one knows what's going on except for the people within their little groups. So they said, well, we need to centralize. So they focus the effort on doing that, which creates its own issues, and the pendulum swings because the momentum and you want the momentum to slow down enough for people to for it to stop in the middle and get stability. But I guess if you want to drive that analogy further, you could say that if they do manage to get equilibrium, which is stability, then the only thing that's going to make that pendulum swing is an outside influence. So,
But do you want it to swing
well,
in order to create work? Otherwise, there's no work.
I guess stability can be argued to be stagnation. The thing is that in reality, I don't think there's one way of doing things, for one, and two, that every option is not necessarily the perfect, there is no perfect option. Because in any system you have entropy, which means that you have winners and losers. You're going to have a more complex system or some change. If change is required, then there will be a sacrifice to something and a gain there to be a gain in something else.
But what happens when it's instability? Isn't that your ideal state?
Instability?
No,
or
in a stable state.
I guess then what could happen in a stable state is a positive thing in terms of where you recognize the pros and cons of both. But I guess, uh, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what, like, it just doesn't seem to happen.
Next time, you got to quote Blake to them and say there is a place at the bottom of graves where contraries are equally true, and just blow their minds.
Yeah, people say shut up.
Which brings me to sort of to my last point, and this is we're talking about consciousness now, and we talked about sort of how we get there, and this is a yogic way to get there, and they got here through um, deep states of meditation. So they've come up with their own ontology, and they've at these lower levels. There's physical. They call them tattvas, but you have like ears, skin, eyes, tongue, nose, mouth, speaking, hands. But as you get high, it gets more ethereal. So like you've got consciousness, individual consciousness here, but then you've got this sort of primordial nature here. But then you keep going up, and you've got like sequential time, causality, and then even higher you've got Shiva and Shakti. So this is from a Shiva Tantra text. So, but the highest, and this is what I'm interested in, is the heart. And so it's Shiva Shakti in perfect fusion. And the core of this philosophy is that, so if we go to that Tattva Zero, the highest Tattva, the highest sort of existence in their universe, I think I passed it. So is the heart, and it's sort of the ultimate principle, Paramatma, I probably butchered that, but it's non-transcendent. So for to transcend is to go beyond and thus to exclude. So in that sense, it's the highest principle for them is a very deeply embodied one. And there is truth in that because we think like, you have to transcend and like become an aesthetic and renounce. But by that way, you're actually rejecting all of that. You're rejecting all of those. So what is sort of holy about that? If you're rejecting half of the people that don't follow you, it's actually got to be more inclusive and more embodied. It's got to be something that is unique to us all, our heart, this sort of universal heart, capital H heart. And he's saying, it's closer.
Like empathy.
Kind of, yeah. It's closer to you than your own breath, this all-pervasive ultimate reality. And so that's interesting to me because in terms of technology, and this artist was saying as well, like, you're concerning the human condition, and what does that mean? And Yeats was saying, in terms of his ideal, this sort of nothing can describe it except complete beauty, and the smile of a half-awakened child. He's sort of thinking in that terms as well. Like there's all of these other states, but his ultimate is this one where he can't even describe it. Kind of like this. There's no words for it, but pure loving consciousness, the heart. Yeah, I think. In terms of VR, I've taken a little bit of a philosophical sidetrack.
No,
But
I'm not worried about that. It's actually there's been something I've been interested in recently. Is there's been some some people have been touting the neuroscience around things like better health, willpower, all getting to different states of consciousness, or being happier, or all of that stuff. Hacks to get out of bed more, that sort of stuff. And there's like a lot of that type of thing. But there was one in particular that really interested in me, and that was the my memory is a terrible thing. It's like anterior mid section something or other.
I can look it up if you want.
I can do that. yeah,
Tenation.
mid-cingulate.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, the anterior mid-cingulate cortex.
Mm.
Uh, and it's about um, like recent research coming out about it, where there's this part of the brain that gets bigger or smaller depending on how much you do things that you don't want to do, and that the the like underlying defining trait of building up this part of your brain, which can be associated with like the will to live, is how strong are you at being able to do the things that you don't want to do. So that means like as soon as you start wanting to do something, that part of your brain shrinks. So,
Ah,
and but when you are doing something that you don't want to do, it it seems to be strongly related to people who are like professional athletes and people who are very good at accomplishing goals and things like that, whereas people who are obese and um, that type of thing have very small anterior mid-cingulate cortexes. And that invest that so it's actually the ability to do something even though you don't want to do it that builds this thing, and that is the thing that uh, is what gives you this feeling of accomplishment and and growth, and this there's a lot associated with and will better willpower, um, just getting I think more out of life, and it's actually interesting because in a lot of philosophies or religious philosophies around the Buddhist of life is suffering, is that very strongly ties to that, where like in order to it's not that you and it's kind of it's a little inspiring in a way because you can always build it up. Like it can go away, but you can build it up again because it always will go down, and and you can always build it up again. All you have to do is do something you don't want to do that you want to do.
it's interesting,
So
eh?
it doesn't. So it does. It's not about like the size of the thing that you're doing. It's about the doing of something you don't want to do. So
Yeah, they call
like
it the
if
tenacious brain, hey?
yeah. So and it helps because when you start to recognize that doing something you don't want to do is something that actually brings benefit to you, and that it's not that people who achieve a lot don't have that anymore. It's that they've learned how to work with that feeling,
Mm.
work with the feeling of not wanting to do something and turning that into something that they actually can hold on to. So, if you get the feeling, I got to get up this morning, I really don't want to, I think I'll stay and I'll look at my phone. But if you get up, you'll feel better because you've done the thing that you didn't want to do, which means you've accomplished a goal. It's just a small thing, but it's, building up this thing. And it's life being like that. It doesn't mean that everything constantly is painful. It means that when things get easier, uh, that's a good thing. But also, it's important to continue to strive for the things you don't want to do because that is where growth occurs. That's where we remember things about our life. That's where a lot of our meaning can come from, I think. I think because, when you think about your strongest memories, they might be really bad times or they might be very times when you've really achieved something, when you won a prize or something, and it's that you pushed yourself to a point. It wasn't just that you won it wasn't the winning of the prize that gave you the most feeling of like it was how hard you worked to get there.
Mm.
All the stuff you did to get to the point where that happened. Um, and I think that's a really interesting way of looking at it, because when we talk about things like empathy and uh, these transcendental states, none of them seem to talk in terms of the importance of hardship. And but Buddhism does, and they say life is suffering, and to get what is it to separate yourself from suffering, you must um I forgot what it is, but basically, you know, I think that the problem is that suffering is an interesting thing to talk about, because you can't say to a person, look, you should suffer, because that you don't want people to suffer. You don't want people to feel challenged in their life, because you want what's best for them. But at the same time, the people who live the longest, like my grandma, who just keeps going, and she refuses to let people do things for her, and she'll make herself get on the bus and all of that type of stuff. It's those people think, why are you doing this to yourself? Or, you know, what? Like, surely there are easier ways. But and you think, gosh, they have strong willpower to do that, with the image in your mind that that person is not suffering, that they're just making themselves do it, and they're not suffering. They are still suffering. They are still, you know, finding it hard to get up in the morning and doing those things. But they're doing it, and it's that mastery that's important.
Yeah, it's important, eh? I found the
Oh,
Buddhist
yeah.
thing.
I
There
found
is
it
suffering,
really
there is a
impactful.
cause of suffering, there is an end to suffering. The way out is the Eightfold Path. I don't know much about the Eightfold Path, to be honest.
I can't remember it either. It was a long time ago. But I just find it interesting because it's a very different slant to the way that we look at reality, in terms of the idea of happiness is to avoid suffering.
Yeah.
So, which is why, you know, if everything around us makes our lives easier, we should be happier. But are we? No,
But to me,
because
it also brings this idea of devotion. Like, what are you devoted to enough to stick with it in terms of, you know, you look at a really elite dancer or an athlete, their devotion to their craft is what makes them, you know, sets them apart, well, spiritually almost, you know, because they've transformed themselves physically by doing that.
but I think that the thing about that is that regardless of the reason for why you do the thing, it's the process of making yourself do something you don't want to do that is the thing that provides value to you. Devotion helps. Whatever it is that you latch onto to help you do that, whether it's a you know, whether it's you have to get up and feed the dog, or you're devoted to this person, or you're devoted to this job. That stuff is what you use to get you out of bed. But it's not one thing. I don't think it's like it has to be devotion or it has to be this. I think there are many ways that you could accomplish it, but if you remember that it's being able to do something you don't want to do, that is, I think, important, because we live our lives saying avoid the negative, get away from the things that make life difficult. But if you actually can recognize that doing difficult things in your life is important, I think that's a key insight, because it's not one that you often hear. Uh, it's certainly, you know, you know, like they say things like man up and all of that sort of stuff, which seems very unkind. And I think it's because, you know, like the way that it comes across is unkind, and it's not sympathetic. But there's got to be a way of being empathetic or sympathetic, but still acknowledging the importance of doing something difficult that you don't want to do. And I think it's being able to reconcile those two. Because there are things in my life where I've wanted to make things easier for those around me, and it just doesn't seem to make things better. And it's because when you part and when you give up responsibility to people who want to make your life easier, life starts to lose its meaning. Like, it's the things that we take responsibility for and we do regardless of how hard they are. We push ourselves through the things we don't want to do. We might not want to do that, but we do it anyway. That's the stuff that gives our life meaning. So I think it's important to recognize how important it is to suffer, but not to be made to suffer, to choose to suffer, to achieve something. Anyway, that's my
Yeah.
statement.
Do you think it's essential then? Suffering.
Yes, I think so, and I think being able to acknowledging that is actually liberating. Uh, and I'm still trying to learn how to do it. Like, and I think it's a daily challenge to be able to do that. It's something that doesn't go away. I think you can get better at it during periods, and then you can get worse at it.
Chris
I
said
don't
deep
think
Thursday night then, gents.
Yeah, I know. I saw that.
I didn't see when it came up. Yeah, it is profound. I like that idea. Hey, the tenacious brain.
Yeah, it adds a different lens to things because it adds a different lens to what it is to have willpower. Because it's not. You think of a person with willpower as not suffering.
Yeah.
They just know how to do it, and it's just like they don't find it a problem. They're not challenged by these things. The whole point is that they are.
Yeah. I mean, we all have different capacities. Things that challenge you
That's right. And it's
might not challenge
relative.
some other people. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Like and it has to be for you. It's tailored to, it's your life. What you choose as your challenges is up to you, and you can't take that meaning away.
You choose
You
your
can't look at what.
challenges. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, like like for some people, it's a great accomplishment just to get up in the morning, and I don't think you can. I don't think you should take that away from them.
Mm.
But I think that the idea is that if they get to the point where they can get up in the morning, they have the next thing, and that life is a series of challenges, and because it's tailored to yourself, like you can't say, "Oh God, I really have to get to being president," or "I really have to get to," you set these things that sure you can have that goal, but I mean, uh, you're gonna have to work bloody hard to work towards that because the thing is that it's the working towards that that actually is it's the journey before destination. It's the journey is the thing that gives you the value, the meaning, the sense of purpose. It's where you end up meeting the people that you have relationships with and you fall in love with, and it's through these things that life starts to get its sweetness because
Well, I
um,
reckon. I reckon in that regard, we're honestly at a worse off time because it's the Olympics at the moment, and down at Darling Harbour, there's a couple of screens where they play, the Olympics, but there's only a handful of people there. It's not like crowds and crowds that used to sort of really celebrate. And Australia scored a goal in the hockey, and a couple of people going, yeah. We're less social people now. And this is adding, this Apple Vision stuff. It's all adding to it. It will be a less very. So I was going to ask you, what are the, it's just changing now. What would you like to see implemented in the technology, if you had the power to say so?
um, don't do it. I don't know. Uh, it's tough. It's tough to say because it's amoral. It's an amoral object. Um, like technology is amoral, but some of it lends itself towards different sets of challenges. We've never known more in our lives than we do now. Knowledge has never been more easily at our fingertips. Also, disinformation has never been as easily at our fingertips as well. But uh, technology as it stands now has provided us with tremendous advantages. But coupled with that is all of the difficulties that we as a species aren't mature enough to recognize and prepare for. When AI first came out, when you had your ChatGPT and OpenAI, everyone was jumping on that, and organizations had to think, well, should we be banning people from using it at work? Like, should people be allowed to use it? And my argument would be to yes, ban it to start with, just outright. And the reason for that isn't because it provides us with it like takes too much away from us, or it makes things too easy, or it's because we don't understand its full impact, and we don't understand enough but like the tech companies are dishing this thing out without other organizations fully understanding what its impact is.
I was going to
And
show
when I
you
say,
this. I brought this up before, but this is Hugging Face. Have you heard of Hugging Face?
no,
It's kind of like an open source repository for all of these models, machine learning models. And so there's so many now that you can get. There's computer vision, natural language processing, audio, and there's all of these different types, video classification. So we're sort of, it's changing faster than you can keep up, honestly,
yeah,
in this
but
space.
fundamentally, one of the key characteristics of all our models is the need for input. So
Data sets.
the hu- yeah, and that generally comes from people saying, "Yes, you're right." So, like, those things where it said, tick the box where the cycle is or where the traffic lights is. Those weren't for us. They
Yeah,
weren't for us. They
they
were
were
for the
training models.
programs to help. Yeah, because it needed people input. So a lot of these models are all predicated on people providing their information, whether it's saying that looks like that, or whether it's this is my address, or so all of these models get more sophisticated based on the input of people, which is where privacy becomes an issue. Because when you say, okay, chat, and this is the thing when it first came out, is that people might be putting in like the medical diagnosis. Let's say, I want to explain this medical diagnosis better. I've written this. Can you format it so that it sounds better? You've just said Janice Petrie's is suffering from clonchiditis in the left vertebral brate, and condylitis is flabellatural to the consular tabulatory left ventricle, and you stick it in, and it says hello, and then it picks out those things, and then it provides an explanation. It's all text and flashy, and you get that. But at the same time, you've got that. It's got all of that information about Beatrix Pertrals, whatever, whatever it was I made up. So now Beatrice might be there one day, writing a letter, and suddenly she finds it telling her things about her left ventricle is clogulditis, because her information has now been put out there, and so like these systems, they're capturing. Like you look at the artwork things, and some of them still have the signatures of the artist that it stole all of that information from.
Yeah, that was the example I was going to bring up. So
Yeah,
I've used some of these that say they weren't trained, They say they're not trained on real artworks, but it's got signatures of people, Yeah, they're
yeah,
scrambled, but the ones that now they're better at removing the signatures, that's all they're getting better at doing.
yeah. They're just better at they've been taught to identify what a signature is and take it out.
Yeah.
It's still like, hey everyone, here's my six-fingered hand. And
Anyway, I
I mean,
interrupted you bringing that up. You were talking about
troglodytes.
before that. You were saying where to draw the line. You said you're in favor of saying it's not a
Uh,
technology that you should adopt because we don't understand it yet.
uh, no, I guess the thing about all technology is that our biggest problem, and it's one that I don't see going away, is that it gets introduced before we fully understand its impact. Um,
Well, what
and
I'm saying now is that it's such early stages that you, as a player, can have impact. You, as your above average intelligence, analytical brain, sort of seeing now the scope of what we're talking about, we can change. And the reason why I brought up that yoga thing is because it's a nice,
well, the
it's a nice sort of centering um, ontology. So they say the ontology is how you describe the universe, and this one is sort of more complete than others, like which Yeats was trying to describe, and it's so random. This is more centered around what's important, sort of ethically as well. That's one of the reasons why I bring it up, because we don't think about things like that. We think about the lower stuff, what
yeah,
matters in terms of this
our
lower half.
hierarchy of needs. What's it going to do to what's it going? Because the base stuff is the things that we get the most gratification from the most quickly. It's not. It doesn't provide ongoing meaning, but it does get the dopamine going.
And it's part of our consciousness, true, but there is also a higher aspect, that we are
Well,
tapping into now, which we can because we're connected actually more viscerally with these devices.
I think though that the problem with all of this stuff is um, what part of the hierarchy produces what part of the personal developmental hierarchy provides the most money to the people who create the product.
I mean, that's their model, that's their incentive. What would be yours? Let's say this is just your product.
So if it was my product, I probably wouldn't make any money out of it. I don't. So I think it's kind. You know what would be what would be really useful is to create a virtual guinea pig. Like if you're able to test out the long-term implication of any type of technology on pseudo people who don't exist, uh, to see what the long-term impact is, and then educate the public in such a way that they understand what the pitfalls and the pratfalls are, to get that into the cognitive zeitgeist and then introduce it, then you can. That's the best way to introduce the technology. But you can't do that. Well, like we don't live in a world that allows for that, because that has two. One is who's the gatekeeper to determine who actually gets access to the technology
Well, if
currently.
you're the owner, you would be the gatekeeper then.
Yeah.
So you're just
So
saying thoroughly
then
test it
people
first.
say, so are you saying that we can't have access to your technology because we're not smart enough yet? Yeah, probably. Like, there's a
What would you say the
sometimes
harms being, like behavioral ones?
for the Apple Vision stuff.
Just in general, this type of tech.
Well, there's a one is there's probably going to be long-term deleterious effects to your facial structure, and like there's going to be a physical impact on people if they use it to the extent that they want them to use it. um there's going to be a social impact in terms of how do you treat people who are between the haves and the have nots. So there's the social impact of how do people change their social interactions as a result of using this product. What's going to be what are the what do we know as a product, as a potential issue, what don't we, what are the potential new products that this will create within its environment, and what are the long-term implications of those things. So let's say now you don't even need to open an app to gamble. You just need to look left and hit the spin button. Walking along, spin. Walking along, spin. Spin, 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 spin. Uh, there are like people. The first base need will be what can this do for my dopamine rush? So how can I get a constant like there are problems with just people working and having TV running in the background where they're getting a dopamine rush at the same time they're trying to concentrate on their work. That's a problem. That's a real problem, and that's a problem that impacts a lot of people. And I don't blame them for that because I suffer from it every now and then too. So this isn't just something that's like, oh, smart people know how to avoid it. This is like, will be designed to be highly addictive for certain behaviors, and which is going to change, as you say, the way that people interact with the world and stuff. But it'll change our brain chemistry.
One thing I do admire about Apple is that they're very consistent with their guns. So, like, I'll hold up an Apple iPhone. That hasn't changed since the first one. It's very regimented in that's an app. When I close the app, it's gone. It's not like in my face, not buzzing and not fucking, unless I tell it to. Apple is good in that regard. So I think what I'm asking you is that if you're in control, like you don't have to put the gambling apps and all of that stuff, because we do see those as risks, obviously, that if people are out of control, always on their device. But if you're in control of it, what's like something that you would see as like, I don't know.
If I so the problem
or are you just saying no, it's bad?
It's hard for me to say because this is not something that is like a one person is going to make things better. It's not.
There's a thought experiment.
Yeah. So if it was up to me to do something that with this technology that I thought would impact the way and make things better for people, I guess it would be to understand all of the potential negative effects of all of that stuff. And then
I did hear what you're saying, like, wearing this device causes physical
yeah, well let's pretend
social.
that it gets to the point where that stuff is all fine. Let's get to the point where basically it's like me wearing my glasses or something. Or it's just a chip in my brain like Elon likes. Oh man, I just think it's going to be bad.
But if you're in control.
But I can't be in control. No one is.
No, if we
no
say
one's in full control.
Yeah, Apple is.
Yeah, but no, they're
of their
not.
device. Of their device they are, yeah. You signed a thing saying the
Yeah,
device
that's
is
right.
void if you load
Right.
up any new software.
But they're
on it.
not. But they're not in control of the technology.
Yeah.
They're in control of the device. They might pioneer the technology. They might.
But
be
it's
the
like on the
people who-
iPhone, like you have to submit an app and it has to go through rigorous approval process. And if at any
Yep.
stage that you don't, the app won't exist on their store. You
Yeah.
can't get it.
And how many people use iPhones?
Heaps, half, right? Isn't it?
So you're saying that half don't.
Yeah, but still, it's half.
So, but it doesn't matter.
Half of
You
all
don't
mobile
have
users,
control.
right?
So, well, let's say half of all mobile users don't have. All right, let's go with that. The half that don't have iPhone are going to produce things that they don't have, and in order to compete, they need to change, and they do. iPhone does let things through, or they do allow more access to different technologies into their ecosystem. Like they have to adapt to what this does. So that's what I mean. You can't have control. They don't have control. They don't have market control of everything. They have influence they have control. They have control of their product, but they don't have control of the technology. So when you introduce the technology, you don't maintain control of it because that's people just don't let that happen. It just can't happen unless like even with patented medical technology stuff that comes out. That's probably the only example I can think where, for long periods of time, you've got people who have patents over some type of like antidepressants and stuff like that, where they have market share for a long period of time, and they can afford to charge people. Basically, they can afford to kill people by charging higher prices. Like that's an example, but that's not really that's like I'm not sure if we that would that can happen in technology unless yeah I'm not sure actually that's I'm sort of talking my way into a different direction here, but I just from examples of what we've seen in the past with technology, anytime you introduce a new technology you get competitors, and part of it is that, and people would argue you have to have competitors. So, and with that competition comes, like you lose control over stuff that you. So, for me to, what would I do if I introduced a technology? Whatever it is that I would introduce might provide benefits to start with, but it would get eroded, right? Whatever it was that I
But let's
introduced would
say you
slowly.
have the patent and no one can copy it.
Uh, there'd be disinformation campaigns that would say that I'm basically putting things into people's brains and telling them that they're being turned into zombies. People would invest a large amount of money in discrediting my technology to the point where it would, yeah, that you would have people not.
But what's their intent behind that?
Well, if they know that you have market share, if you have complete control of a market,
Well, let's say you're a
that's
billionaire
going,
giving it away for free.
well, then you've got the internet. So the internet was made free to all, and it spawned a whole new age of technology with all of the good and all of the bad.
I'm
So,
not saying that it's the internet. You have control over your device and the software on it.
well, what I mean by it's the internet is an example where something was made free, and so it emerged with the wants and needs of people, and it became its own ecosystem with all the good and all the bad that came with it. So there was no maturity of understanding of what this thing is or how it could influence people's lives, nor could there nor could there be, because the human mind is like, it's a this thing, it's an evolution is not one directional. Evolution is based on its interactions with the environment. So if we introduce this new technology, which is, but let's say that because the ultimate aim of this type of technology is basically virtual reality without a device. Like that's the ultimate goal. Ultimate goal
That's
is,
what I'm trying to get at. What is your ultimate
yeah.
goal? If you have one for this sort of thing.
Well, what these
Your
technology,
one though, not like anyone
my,
else's. Yeah.
um, I don't know. I don't know because I don't know what I would want it to do for people. I guess I probably just would. I guess the best that I could hope for would be to use it as an educational tool. It's probably the best I could hope for. Something that helps educate people, but at the same time, also have rigorous controls in place to restrict people from being able to use it for extended periods of time. So if So like say the end product is something that I just hit the button and my reality changes around me so that I'm no longer in this reality as we understand it. It would have to be a very it'd have to be something educational that expands a person's ability to understand others and themselves, to grow knowledge, and to, I think, enhance your ability to interact with the world outside of it. So you would it's not a replacement for reality. It's something that enhances reality. So you use it so that you want to turn it off to engage with reality in a more positive way.
Oh, that you want to turn it off.
You want to turn it off. You get the benefit and then you want to turn it off because you get more meaning out of reality than you do out of the virtual reality. You get the benefit without the addiction. What would you do?
It's sensible. I see these devices as like you say, it's an enhancement, the ability to interact with us in a more embodied way. Like it knows my eye tracking, so you can see instantly when I'm disinterested, and it can let someone else know that I'm disinterested, and in a kind way. And maybe they can change their content or change their way, know that I'm switching off. Not that I intend to, but like, you know what I mean? Like it's almost like telepathy. It's almost like mind reading. It's knowing what I'm thinking before I do, and it can
But what
transmit
if
that faster than I can even write, you know? It's almost like
but
telepathy.
what if it's in your benefit to know something that you're not interested in?
That's just an example. The other example is if I'm looking specifically at an array of things, and I always look at that one thing, and then it knows that, and then it switches all the other things to be in line with what I'm interested in faster than I can even think about because it's just my
Like
eyes.
YouTube.
It's like a glance, though. It's faster than that.
Yeah, but it's far like regardless of what it is, it's YouTube.
Uh, I'm just saying, like an
It's a search
array of
algorithm.
things. It's not, yeah.
But it tailors the algorithm to reinforce what you look at now. So it doesn't know what's in your best interests. It just
Um,
tailors itself to your benefit in the now. Because if life is about growth and being more
no,
than
I
who
said
you are
like I
now,
said see more of that thing or less than that of that thing, depending. And depending on other biometrics, like you might have a heart rate hooked up or something like that. Other
mm,
factors that, you know, can determine what state you're in and if you need less of it.
yeah, actually, it would be interesting to say like I want to have personal. I'm in a I want a and yes, my bro said Ready Player One. Yeah, we're kind of talking to that, but a bit more. But we mentioned it earlier, bro. But we have
Did you read
kind
the
of
book?
ended with in and out. Yeah.
How was the book compared
The
to the film? It went more into this side of things, didn't it?
it was better than the film. Yeah. Um, the yeah
Did it go into the
the
VR side things?
yeah. Um, what was I saying? I forgot what I was
You
saying
said
now.
it was interesting because I said like if you could decide if you don't want to,
Oh yeah, you
yeah.
could pick a profile. So you have like almost like an avatar. This is Derek the hard worker. So it sets the settings to you. It's not going to make things easy for you, or something that encourages your brain to be more conscious of work and all that sort of stuff. Or Derek the lazy ass, and you hit lazy ass, and then it just makes everything tailored to your algorithm or personal growth, you know. And you can't pick a profile and stick with that profile because it's unhealthy to do so. Like that would be cool
But there's
because that's
depth in
you're
in
determining your because you see the thing is you're like uh there's the conscious thing and then there's all you know they talk about mind hacks and all this sort of stuff. There's your conscious decision to do something, and then there's the things that support or don't support that are subconscious that we're not aware of. So, and that's what I mean is like what's cool is that you can consciously pick something that is going to feed back to support that subconsciously.
Yeah.
So, sorry. I'm sorry to
No,
interrupt
I
you.
agree with that. I agree because like you can either see more of that thing or less of that thing depending on what you want. But the power
Yeah.
is that it can transmit that to someone else. These things, these subliminal things that no one else would
Mm,
notice or but can now be explicit. I think
mm.
that's very powerful. It's almost like mind reading.
That is actually a really interesting. Yeah. So basically, it has a thing that tells you what they're thinking. It's
Kind
reading
of.
their expressions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it basically people can do that now.
That's
Uh,
almost like telepathy, and telepathy is a real
oh,
huge
yeah.
advancement in human consciousness for me.
Well, some people already do it. Some people are better at it than others in terms of just being able to read micro expressions. It's hard to explain. Like sometimes I actually do it. Not all the time. It's not like, but there are times when I immediately know what that person is thinking based on a series of factors. And like, it's only in retrospect that I can go and think about, well, they did this, and this, and this. Like, there's a whole range of express. I'll give you an example. I I went on I don't know if I should. I'll do it anyway. I went on a date. I went on a date, and and I was meeting this person, and when they looked up and they saw me, I knew immediately that it wasn't that it wasn't that they didn't dislike me or that it was more than just they're not interested. It was uh, I saw disappointment. Because it was like an image and like there was more than that. Like it's hard to explain. Like it's not just like it's easy to see in someone and say, "Oh, I read their mind. I saw their disappointment on their face." But it was more than that. Like there was more to it than just they were disappointed. It was how I could see how they were going to behave from this point forward. I could see, what their thought processes of how to deal with the situation stuff. And it wasn't an intent of, and it wasn't even something I'm sure that they were even necessarily conscious of, because they still wanted to go and have a chat and would get to know each other and all of that. And it was a really nice conversation, and we got on well, and I think we liked each other, but neither one of us was like, oh, this is, they call it the spark and all that sort of rubbish. The, but there was something, there was just, there's certain factors, and I kind of just, like, I knew what would happen at the end of the process. And people might argue, well, you basically created that because you expected this to happen, you made it happen. But I'm kind of very self-aware of things like that in myself, so I can kind of reflect on things. But this is why I said I probably shouldn't talk about it.
Mm.
But it's just getting to, like, reading micro expressions is more than just saying you see a person's emotion. It's There's a whole thought process that you can read in what a person in those micro expressions, because people don't think one thing and that's it. They stay in that one thing. They think, oh, what, yeah, and then I'll do what does
I think it's way more
they,
complicated than
it
that
is.
initial thing because like let's say initially she's disappointed, but
Yeah,
let's say you have both are wearing these devices now and
yeah,
the thing knows that she's disappointed, but it's talking to you who just happened to be a very good match on all other levels. It knows
yeah,
somehow, let's say, but you don't know how to overcome the disappointment and it feeds you some text
yeah.
prompts without
That
her
says,
knowing that she wants to hear. kind of like Groundhog Day. He knows exactly what she
Yeah.
wants to hear.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And then like suddenly it's more complex than the initial disappointment, and you've actually overcome
Yeah.
that because it knows enough about both of you that you'd be better off together.
Yeah.
Right?
In which case it's deciding for you. Yeah.
Well, not really, because you still decide whether you or not you want to say that stuff. But that's a level of technology that we don't have yet, and could be very
That's
interesting.
yeah, no, absolutely. And choosing what to say and do ultimately comes down to you. But at the same time, it's a question of are you creating and I'm not saying this is not here, this is just philosophical
This is all
thought
it is.
thinking, yeah. But like at that point is so uh now I know what that person's thinking, and I'm being told what to say to make that person think differently. How much of that is me that's doing that? In which case, how much of it is actually this person knowing anything about me as a person? How much of what this person gets from me is actually a computer? Even though we're face to face, even though they're looking at me. And like how much of it is really they're talking to a computer and I am the robot.
Well, it's kind of like this thing, like people just want to hear what they want to hear, right? It doesn't matter. And like the computer knows, the fact that you're getting it from the computer is just reinforcing the fact that um, they just want to hear that thing. So it's not your
Yeah.
fault, but
Yeah.
the
They
fact
really
that you still want to
they
be
want to
with
hear
someone
about
like
your
that is
car.
probably.
Mention your Porsche. Mention your Porsche. Now's the time to mention your gosh damn Porsche.
That's the thing, and then it's up to you to decide. Do you still want to be
Show
with some?
photos of your dogs.
Do you still want to be with this woman that clearly doesn't interested in you physically, but like whatever, blah 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 blah.
Yeah. In this case, I think it was that I wasn't tall enough.
Yeah, so you can't change it. So do you even bother?
Oh, I had a nice conversation. Sometimes the initial factor, it's like a person's initial reaction can also change. Um, yeah.
I mean, the
Like,
Groundhog Day example is a good one because he says he starts reading
yeah,
French poetry to her, like, uh,
that's right.
he learnt
He
all this
does
stuff.
everything. He did all of these things that would get him to a place, but in the end, that wasn't the thing that won her heart. It was his piano playing. Mm.
Ready
No,
Player
it's
One,
a,
yeah, that's what it is, Chris.
mm. Yeah, yeah, like, yeah. I guess that's the thing with all of these with these technologies. It's the 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 problem that I have is that if we're to talk of us as an individual, a community, and a species, any technology should be dedicated towards improving all three of those things. Um, before you even consider creating that technology. And that's my personal thing because I want harmony. But it's not harmony. I want I want the ability for the most people to grow, and not just people but the environment as well. Like the climate and all that sort of stuff. The best for the most. Uh, and something that would
But
support
I
that.
reckon we're fighting against everything, to be honest. We're in this age, this dark age, where everything is vying for our attention, and
Yeah.
our attention is the currency, and we're in a losing battle. We all play
Yeah.
games. We all try to disconnect. We all
Yeah.
we're buying the next thing. All of us
We
are.
all What's easy. We want to give up responsibility. We want to do less, and we want to experience more.
and we're being told that's fine because everyone else does that. Watch
Well,
a
we're saying
streamer,
it's a good thing.
and that's a good
It's a good
thing.
thing. Yeah.
So we're not in this world where technology is improving us.
No, that's right. But that's not the question you asked me with regards to
Oh, we
if
back
I
on
had.
that. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, if we were. So, but
If it
no,
was in Utopia, yeah. So how would you
but
do that then? You'd have to get rid of all games and stuff.
I know there's a lot of stuff that I don't want to do that I'd have to do. So I guess I would get benefit from doing that though, because it would expand my anterior mid-singular cortex. Um, but yeah, I think I don't know. Uh, I don't know. I Yeah, I don't know.
Like you say,
I
it's
just
education.
yeah
That's a sensible one.
yeah, but
But I
it's yeah,
also see
and there's
connection, like
so
connection.
obviously all the science, so Christian, so Jesus and Christianity and all the sciences, the Bible.
But I also see like a level of
That's
connection
weird.
that can be achieved that is lacking from social media because they're trying to pump ads. But you can have,
But
I think,
that's what's going to happen with that, right? That's what it will do. It will just be more of the same in a different medium
yeah, I do see
where
it
they've
doing
got
away.
even more of your attention. That's
Especially
why they want it.
where Facebook's involved, that will be where it
Yeah,
goes.
that's the ultimate goal. The
I mean,
ultimate
that's why I
goal
was
is
talking about in terms of what you want, a utopia of that thing. Because that's kind of what
yeah.
these artists were talking about in terms of expanding consciousness with video. Like this really dated technology they were
Well,
talking about it.
you have to create a product that you are determined not to profit from. Like I don't think you can uh you what you profit from in those so think of it like the internet. You can make profit from making the internet free for everyone, but it's not ultimately the internet that makes you the profit. It's the stuff within that free environment that you create, the products that you create within that environment that will make you the money, right? So if I create like goggles and make it open source and free to everyone, that gives people less control, and I make no profit out of the creation and distribution of this product, but I make profit from the the products I create within that environment.
You make profit
Uh,
from the products.
that would be how you could potentially ethically make profit, is by making it free to, because the idea is that if you sell this product with advertising and all of the things, like your one goal for the creation of this product is to ensure that you have as much of that person's attention as possible.
What I like about this technology is that rather than television, which is very passive, very broadcast, we receive the message. This has the ability to know straight away whether we're engaging or not. We can look away, you know, we look away, and it knows straight away that you're not interested. Um, or you look down, or like you look uncomfortable. It can know that stuff, and you can
Yeah,
adjust it to say, I don't want any of that things that'll make me feel this way, you know.
you're
Um,
starting you're starting to look depressed. Maybe we should pick a different film.
but yeah, it has the ability to change depending on us. That's the power of this tech as well.
But the other thing as well to always bear in mind is that whatever product we create it's a feedback loop, right? So if it reacts to your attention to it, that very interaction will change your interaction back to it.
Yep.
So it's not just a one-way street. It's not just saying, "Oh, let me give you a different product." The result of that will change you, even if it's subconsciously, it will change your behavior.
Yeah.
So, and that's what you can't predict. Like,
No.
I can't predict that you constantly stopping, losing interest in something, and me doing this thing that I think is going to help you. I can't predict what the long-term impact of that going to be. It might be positive, but it also might mean you no longer have an attention span.
Yep. It has to be done carefully. Absolutely. You can't be behaviorally different, and that's why I appreciate they have a person guiding you through it, holding your hand. And she even said, like, if at any time you get scared or something, to remember it's just a thing. You just tap me on the shoulder and we can stop it. It's kind of like they're really trying to sell this and guide you through it in the easiest way it can possibly be.
Well, to be honest with you, there's a secondary reason to say that, and that is to put in your mind the idea that this is as real as it can get.
Oh yeah.
If I say, look, at any time, if this is just getting too real for you and you're feeling too scared of this stuff, like, can put in your mind that what you're about to see is going to be as real as it gets.
Yeah, well, it worked. It was very scary. I'm scared
You
of
just wanted
heights.
to hold her hand.
And because it was like on this cliff, and like it's
Oh
like,
yeah, I'm terrified of heights
oh
too.
man.
I'd be gripping her hand.
And she fell, like she was losing balance, and she's like, and she fall, and it cuts to black straight at that moment. Holy balls.
Yeah, that's freaky.
But yeah, it's very real that it will change our behavior, and this has forever changed our behavior.
Oh, absolutely.
But so it will
Absolutely.
change. But we're at a point where we recognize now. We can recognize.
Yeah, well, I think that there's always a potential to improve, like for these things to, like for us, like through the interaction over years and years and years, for us to develop a more symbiotic relationship that's more beneficial to us. Like there is the possibility of that. It's just yeah, it's just I'm not sure if we're at that point yet. I don't think we are.
We're always playing catch up, unfortunately. I mean, this paper was written last year. It's talking about things about it in the 60s, that happened in the 70s. And we still don't have answers, man. We still don't have answers. We're just trying to fumble our way through, which is why I think these discussions are good, because we're, you're really switched on. And these topics that I bring up, it's relevant to now. There is no answers. But the best we're doing is talking about it and trying to make sense of it, make meaning.
And I appreciate I appreciate the thoughts and the questions. I like talking about this stuff.
It's very thought-provoking, your answers as well, because it adds a layer to it that I haven't considered.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
I think we talked out, eh?
I'm interested in your thoughts as well. I hope that I'm giving you space to tell me what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. It's a good discussion.
I think my voice is giving up.
Yeah, we'll let it go then, eh? Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Man. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, meanwhile, I'm just painting.
Oh, painting. Can you show us? I've got a better way to show it now. Yeah, we'll wait for Chris. He might send us a photo. Yeah. Hold on. Yes, it's coming. Warhammer. Yeah, it's cool talking in space, the final frontier.
Thought, the final frontier.
Thought.
These are the voyages of the Mushroom Enterprise.
That'd be cool, eh?
To take DMT.
You ever tried that stuff?
No. No.
I
wouldn't mind, but
microdoses, apparently, it's alright.
I'm not sure if it will work well while I'm trying to take care of my son.
On the week
Being
off.
a dad.
On the week off.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. From all responsibility. Hold on. Have you? Yeah, but what are your thoughts on all of this stuff? What do you?
Yeah, I reckon it's gonna change things. Dropboxing now.
Mm.
Oh, he's checking it up. Cool.
Oh, sweet.
I should be able to load it in this little browser.
Mm. I just realized there are mushrooms behind you.
Oh. Oh yeah, that's the stuff. Did you pull one from mine? Here we go.
No.
Can I copy this? Whoops. Upgrade your browser to Dropbox anyway. I'll open up Chrome.
How many viewers have we got?
2.
Two. So we've got the bot and my bro. Oh no, hang on, that's me. Two, that's me. I'm the one because I have to get into see my bro.
Ah, look at this. Here we go. And voila. Laptop.
Mm.
Man, there's so many. Are they all the same? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 of them. Oh, there's more. Oh, there's more. Basically all the same. Hang on.
Tyranids.
Open up the next one. Oh, Tyranids. Do you know the name? Oh, that's that one. Come on.
You got the little. You've been plucking your nose hair, bro.
Ah, wicked. They look amazing. Hey, so much detail. Hey, they got 6 eyes. Is that their eyes?
Gene stealers.
Love the colors on them. Wow.
You're good, bro. Good job.
Heaps of detail on the gun.
Termagants. Is that what they're called? Just buy Space Crusade.
Oh, the head comes off. Oh, are these little babies?
That'd be segmented, I think.
Uh,
Oh no, they could be. Oh no. They look like heads.
this is... I think the heads came off.
No. He says Ripper Swarm.
Gene stealers. When I grow up and have money. Oh, these little things, I see, yep. Holy crap, they look amazing.
Good, bro. Good work, bro.
You've got like the inside as well. It's hard to do that.
He says, wait.
Armor. I'll put them together. Give me 1 minute. Oh, he can put them together. I see.
Should I stream some Dwarf Fortress?
Yeah, you can. I like the design of these things, eh?
What is it? Warhammer 40k.
Oh, you got all the paints now. It's cool. Oops, I'm not watching. One sec.
Oh, you don't have to be.
There it is.
Well, it's showing. Oh, I see. I need to get all of your Twitch stuff that you got set up because been thinking of doing my own little thing.
Yeah, it doesn't really work here with the Derek and Peter thing, but
Hmm. What is a gosling doing in there?
here we go. Last photo.
Sweet.
Ah, I see. They stick on one thing. It's a swarm. I also see that you've picked up some more sand for the base. Or is that just the texture of it?
Are you talking to me or to him?
Ah, to him. He pasted one more photo. Ah,
Sand.
he's yet to make a base.
Oh.
Wow. They look great, eh?
Hmm.
I like how the tongues stick out. So they're kind of like xenomorphs, is that right?
Yeah, kind of. So I can't remember exactly how it all works, but I think they infect a planet and
Oh, there's
everyone
another picture.
slowly gets turned into. Slowly
Ah,
turned
cool.
into. I'll have to look it up. I don't have that.
It's almost like you sprayed the pink on, hey? Do you have a little spray gun now? Oh no, just in the brush. It's pretty amazing. Lots of stress. It's so tiny, I can't even imagine, eh? It'd be right if it was like twice the size. Yeah, they look awesome. This purple's pops more, I think. This like brighter purple. Oh, I just noticed the grass on the ground too. Oh, it's better lit, I see. Yeah, it looks amazing. Oh, I'm hearing stuff from Dwarf Fortress. Slightly lighter edge of the head. Notice the highlights. Oh, in the end you shade it, I see. Dry brushing of a brighter purple, I see. Ah, I see, yep. This one, this color.
Hmm.
Yeah, super shiny. It looks nice.
Shiny, shiny, shiny.
Have you seen these in person, Peter?
Hmm.
Have you seen these in person? Subscribe to my Patreon. We gotta go over the Patreon too.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind.
What's going on in Dwarf Fortress? The
I'm
same
trying to
thing?
figure out. I'm trying to figure out why no one is putting anything in this.
The minecart.
Yeah, guide west when at most 75s. When at least. When at most. Least. Vehicle move to next stop if any conditions triggered. Go that way. Because I'm trying to get them to fill it up, but see how it says 0%? That means that it's not filling up.
Where does it say 0?
There. What's going on here? Baby boy. Masterpiece. Good at
Oh,
making
night,
shit.
guys. My brain is full. See you, Chris. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Night, bro.
Nice
Take it
work on the
easy.
paintings. They're basically the mini sculptures. They're awesome.
Yeah, great.
See you, man.
Job, bro. Night.
Yeah, we should end the stream as well.
Yeah, I think it's time to call it. Thanks very much for the stream, man, and
How do I stop watching?
talk to you next time.
Oops. Hang on.
Oh, I guess I just stop sharing.
There we go. Oops. How do I close that? Don't know. Anyway, you still see us. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks everyone. Bye bye.
Stopping now.
Stopping.